hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey ya ho ye wa yellow hey. Wakan takashe malayo he maka kijelo he o chanom pakile leu ha hoye wa yelo he hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey ho ye wa yellow hey. Wakan takashe malayo he maka kijelo he o chanom pakile leo ha hoye wa yelo he hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, hey oh, yeah, hey ho ye wa yelo hey. Wakan takashe malayo he maka kijelo he o chano pakile leo ha hoye wa yelo he. Hey oh, ay, oh, hey oh, ay, oh, hey ay, oh, hey ay, oh, hey oh, hey oh, ay, yeah, hey ay, oh, yeah, why yellow hey. Wakan takashe malayo he maka kijelo he o chanom pakile leo ha hoye wa yelo he. Aho mitakuye wa yasin.
Miigwech, Chief Phillip, for that beautiful opening. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jen Begin. I am a sister in Grandmother's Voice, a grassroots organization and platform elevating Indigenous wisdom. It is an honor to be here with each of you tonight and those of you who will be watching the recording in ceremony, lifted by the heartbeat of Mother Earth and held in the sacred presence of the ancestors. Each week, we gather in this circle with grandmothers and grandfathers from across the 7 continents, elders whose lives are rooted in sacred knowledge, ancestral memory, and a deep commitment to healing, truth, and spirit. Their voices carry the wisdom we need in these times, wisdom born not of theory, but of lived experience, of ceremony, of connection to land and spirit. This is not just a series. It is a remembering, a weaving of story and spirit that calls us back to who we are and to who we are becoming. Now is the time. Now is the time to gather, to listen, to honor the voices of the elders who have carried these teachings through generations. Tonight, we are honored to welcome Lorna Shuford and Chief Phillip. Welcome, Bindigan. We are so honored to have you, and I'll pass it over to you, Grandma Gail.
Wow, there's excitement in the air. You know, we have little practice sessions before we have the lives, and we had some very interesting and wonderful conversations, and so that's making me really excited because these speakers have a lot to share with us tonight. And thank you so much for that opening because it took me right back to ceremony, and ceremony never leaves. Ceremony just brings you further and further back to where it is you have to be. And I just want to acknowledge that Grandmother Susan is having technical difficulties tonight. And so she's sitting there, and if she can, she's listening and watching. So I just want to acknowledge that she's somewhere in the background. And the series is about, being able to do that, being able to be where you need to be whenever you need to be there. So tonight we're going to start this, the speaking with Lorna, and boy, she's got a lot to share with us. So I'm going to just let her share what it is that she needs to share with us tonight.
Lorna, you're on mute.
Okay, I was saying greeting, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be among individuals and entities such as high accolade among my person, and the gratitude of being given the opportunity to speak and to rejoice among the movement of resilience, stability, and deliverance, which is to me the main goal of our existence and congregation. So I would like to just speak a little bit about myself. My name is Dr. Lorna Shuford. I'm Cuban. I was born in Guantanamo, Cuba, which is Oriente. Oriente is like the state of Florida. Guantanamo is like the county, and Guantanamo City is like the city of Miami. But I was born in a town called Caimanera, which means in Indigenous, in Spanish and Taíno, river of caimans, a water full of caimans. And that's what it was. And maybe still is. And then I was born right next to the city that you go into the Navy base, Guantanamo Navy base. Until recently, I did not know, was aware that I had the Indigenous aspect of my ancestral, because I was busy supporting and doing all kinds of things for different nations, being a grandmother, being a paralegal, a judicial judge, putting together nations and notarizing and so forth. And I just had a passion for helping, but never thought I was involved till recently. My family, my aunt did my maternal auntie did Ancestral.com, and I could identify. We knew that our grandfather came from Puerto Rico to Cuba in the turn of the century. He graduated from the University of the Caribbean, went there, fell in love with this Filipino, beautiful lady, my great-grandma, and had like 9 kids with her. And we didn't know that his mother also was Taino, because his dad was Italian. We found out that his dad was Italian, when in the turn of the beginning of the century to Puerto Rico, married her, had his 2 kids. One went to New York, his daughter, and the other one, my great-grandfather, went to Cuba. He's an electrical engineer on the Batista. And so we found out that, yeah, we have it on the Puerto Rican side of us. And then I recently did research on my dad and my grandma, and also in Cuba, because I'm putting my Caribbean museum in Guantanamo, because I found out that that's where the original Taínos are. The original bloodline Taínos are in southern Cuba. They're in Guantanamo. Some of the Taínos that are in Havana are not all of pure lineage, and some of them, the government does give them subsidiary for them to do things for the tourists. So the ones that remain pure and are direct descendant of Hatuey y la Española Cacique that came during Columbus, those are the bloodline. And I found out that my paternal grandfather's last name was Ramirez, but we always use Rodriguez, because in Latin America you use your mother's last name, then your father's last name. That's how it is. So we never talked about that till I got my dad's birth certificate, and I found out, wow, Ramirez, this is weird. I'm a Ramirez. Oh, no way, I don't like that name. I'm never gonna use that name. Yuck. And then come to find out, when I got involved with the Indigenous community and the director of that particular area, he's not Indigenous, but They opened the door for me to create my museum down there. Come to find out that we started helping the indigenous. So we started getting them out from the mountains into the mainstream. They come once a month in and out to get food or whatever. And they're just like plain folks like you and me, dressed alike, you know, but they're just very quiet. They come and go. They have one house in Guantanamo where they all congregate, and then they usually go back to the woods and the mountain, and they have a very beautiful place. And they were talking, and they said, you know, I kept sponsoring and supporting them. And they said, we're going to do, we've done so much that now the country's realizing who they really are, and they want to do a recognition. And they did a recognition where the recognition went all the way back to Hatue and Anakanara and all of them in Espanol and the Caribbean. And come to find out that when we're doing the proclamation or the paperwork, their real name is what is it? Ramirez Rojos. So I'm like, Ramirez, and everybody's like, wait a minute, Lorna, you may have something there. I said, no. And they say, yeah. And they started researching, come to find out that my dad was born in what is called the Indian town. It's a little town that I guess it kind of no longer exists, but it was a town where all the Indians will congregate and come down from the mountain, whatever, and do their shopping, their buying. It was like a little additional stepping stone or village that they had in the regular, you know, civilization community. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, my dad was born there. His dad looks kind of Indian. My dad, if you see my dad, you think my dad is like maybe Indian or Dominican. My dad doesn't look nothing. He looks indigenous, the hair, the everything. My mother is half Filipino, Jamaican, Cuban Jamaican, Filipino. So I'm a mutt. So I'm like, one more thing to my whoa. So what happened was that validation gave me more strength to do what I got to do in Southern Cuba. So now they have me as their ambassador, a spokesperson, and their supporter and banner. And this is why it's so important right now to be respected, recognized, and accepted among this beautiful community, because it gives me the strength to give them. They don't want to be out in the world, but they do want to retain their heritage. And now that the Cuban government has recognized them fully and stated these are the real ones, these are the pure blood, these are the destined. There's like 4 or 5 mini village between the city of Guantanamo and going into the mountain. And the deeper it is, the stronger the information. Now, what the government has done, it permits the Canadians, the French, and I believe the Germans to come in and learn about all their holistic medical treatments, the plants, the food. And once a year or twice a year, they give these workshops, and these people come in and they educate them on all kinds of holistic items and plants and food and how they do certain things with the sun, the moon, or whatever. So that's something that I feel it's being lost. We need to gravitate towards that. So I requested to do maybe 2 to 4 times a year, do a voyage, a pilgrimage, or bring delegations to come down there. And we intermingle with them. We bring in certain things. We talk to them. So at first they were hesitant, but then they found out from the government and everything that it was okay, because we're not talking nothing apolitical. We're actually dealing with indigenous issues, cultural issues, artistic issues, and health and wellness. So there is no irony with the fact that we're going there to do anything else or change people's mind of how they think and want to live. So I'm welcome to. They're waiting to do the letter of invitation. They would like to know who wants to be involved. So when we do this delegation, they even have a property where they set aside 4 rooms, and then there's 5 other houses that have rooms. So when whoever goes, we're treated with kindness, respect, and the good Cuban food. And we're going to have several opportunities to move. The museum is growing and expanding. I'm the turtle lady down here. Well, I'm in Georgia right now, but in Miami, I'm the turtle lady. So they even they asked me, what would you like? I said, I would love to have a turtle there. And they brought me a sea turtle, and I said, no, because you have to change the water. That's too much. So they went and got a land turtle. So there's a turtle there. that represent who we are for the change of time. I feel turtles are the climate change thermometer, and I proved that when we had the red algae and all that happening down here, where all the turtles were telling us they were coming, and eventually then they just started dying, and we're like, whoa, wait a minute, this is more hazardous than we know. So what I am is I'm crazy about the environment as an ecological person, advocate, and I'm about humanity, and I'm also an archaeologist to different areas. I'm okay. I don't know if you guys still hear me. And come together on our own, not have other people come and do the ecological and the research, and let us communicate, connect with the ancestors, with the land, with the earth, and do our findings and do the excavation and have that respect which is needed to excavate if needed, and if not, to do pilgrimage of all due respect. So that's where I'm at. Also a representative of Black Wall Street, out of Tucson, Oklahoma. And I came into that to create more diversity. It's not an all African American thing. It happened to a lot of people. So my interjection into that group was very strongly to be more of a more universal aspect, especially the state of Florida that I represent, and as well as to bring homage to the Trail of Tears. So they recently decided to do that pilgrimage, where they're going to do it in May. I'm the lead Florida representative, and also, from what I'm understanding, global representative of the diversity. So it's so important. I told them that I will not accept that assignment unless we connect with the grandmothers and the overall Indigenous community, Aboriginal community of Turtle Island and its surrounding Americas. And that's where I came into contact. DJ McNally is my friend for many years. He's my big brother. And he says, you know what, Lorna, if we want to do something right, we must do it with the right people, with the respect and dignity of the existence. We just can't jump in and do something because somebody thinks it's wonderful or should be. So I went back to him and I said, I'm not doing anything unless first and foremost, we include the grandmothers, and then let the grandmothers guide us into the Aboriginal Indigenous community, and we take it from there. And this is where I am today, being respected, accepted, and hopefully coming together and doing this big mission. And I don't call it the Trail of Tears. I call it the Trail of Thrill. And I had another statement that I said today, the tears of joy. Why? Because we've been resilient, we survive, we're coming together, and we're going to deliver on our future generation, not to forget who we are. And there I rest my presentation. Thank you. Aho. Grandma Jen,
Yeah,
or
thank you. And again, you talk about that your work, and it's important that we carry that message of healing, of love. And again, we remember who we are, remember our roots. And it doesn't matter what roots we have to honor all aspects of our roots, because each of them bring and make us who we are in a very special light. I guess I better introduce myself too. Sego Sewa Fuego Katine Miyongas. So I'm from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, Southern Ontario, Canada, about an hour out of Toronto. And this series is really important because we're at an important time in our history. We knew this time was coming, and we just didn't expect that it would be during our time. So it's really important now that we gather and speak from our hearts and share the messages that we need to share in order to be able to move forward for our coming faces, our next 7 generations. So thank you so much for the work that you do. We have to protect our mother. We are mothers, we're grandmothers, and we have to protect our mother, because that important aspect carries us through to the next generation, our next lives. We come back the ancestors. We were the ancestors, and so we speak with the wisdom of the ancestors right now. So thank you so much, Lorna. Um, Next, we have Phillip. Phillip will again. We were able to, speak briefly before we started this night, and what powerful work that is being done around the world. So it's really nice to share the messages, and everyone has a thread that we all need to weave together to make our world so much happier and more beautiful than it is. And beauty is everywhere. And so I'll hand it over to you, Phillip, and miigwech. Yawa.
Oh, mitakwi oyasin. I'm known as Šúnkawakhán Sápa. That's Lakota for black horse. I'm a ceremonial leader in the Lakota tradition, as well as a member of respected Native medicine families in the Native American Church. I reside here in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is the sovereign territory of the coastal Miwok, Pomo, and Ohlone nations, where I'm founder and director of Ancestral Voice Institute for Indigenous Lifeways. I'm very honored to be able to be on this call, and I wish to firstly express my gratitude to the grandmothers here as my elders for your wisdom and your work and your service in the world that is much and desperately needed at this time. So I acknowledge this platform as an opportunity to be able to share this medicine and this wisdom at this very significant juncture in our journey as a species. Since I had cleansed myself off with sacred sage, which was harvested in a sacred manner from the Pine Ridge Reservation, and since we had commenced with the song, that song actually was from my Lakota mother from the Pine Ridge, and she would wake every morning before the dawn, and she would stand facing the east, and she would sing that song, and tears would stream down her face, for she had been abducted from her family, placed in the boarding school system, and many of us are aware of the atrocities that were perpetrated upon the children in that boarding school system. And, she had experienced much hardship and adversity in her life, and yet she was unconditionally loving as a grandmother. She welcomed everyone, regardless of what their race or their ethnicity was. And one of the most unconditionally loving women I've ever met in my life. And the essence of the song, a rough translation into English, is that, the acknowledgement of the Creator and the ancestors and the earth, and that we're experiencing adversities and hardships in our life. And yet, through the Šúnkawakhán, the sacred pipe, through the Chantaluta, the red road, the way of the heart, the way of the human being, we will prevail. And I think more than ever, this song is timely. And another phrase that my mother would often share is that every step a prayer, every step a acknowledgement of our communion with the divine, with the holy ones, the Tunkashlas, the ancestors, as well as Mother Earth herself. And recently I returned from conducting a hamblecha, which is a traditional vision quest, where in my family we fast without food and water and sleep for 4 days and 3 or 4 nights. So I had 4 questers that went out to go on the blanket, go on the mountain, as they say. And in so doing, it allows, this privation allows for a communion to receive instructions and insight and guidance from the holy ones in terms of their original instructions. Each and every one of us has a gift, has mission and a purpose here to fulfill. And through that communion, that vigil on the mountain, there's an opportunity to receive glimpses and understandings about what our sacred purpose is here for the benefit of others. And so we have a base camp where there are supporters eating and drinking and sleeping for the questers, and we maintain a ceremonial fire. And there are those that are chopping wood and carrying water to maintain that base structure so that there is an opportunity for that energy to be directed in support of those questers who are sacrificing for themselves and for the people. And I will actually be soon departing for Guatemala as well. And there I've been asked to conduct ceremonies and to lead a retreat for men to help them resurrect and remember the sacred masculine, which has to do with selfless service and sacrifice as protectors and defenders of the earth and of women and children and elders. And I think more than ever, there has been a forgetting fundamentally of what this role and responsibility is for men to carry. And so I'm really honored to be able to travel to share. And I will be convening with other medicine men from other nations and other traditions, both in Central and South America. So there's a transmission of essential knowledge for those who will seek and come to the sacred lake to receive these teachings and incorporate them so that there can be a change for the future, because I really see a troubling trajectory for our society and for our humanity in general, of forgetting on how to take care of the earth and one another. And so it's also a fulfillment of the prophecy, which was first credited in Bolivia, with the nations of Bolivia, where the coming together, the confluence of the eagle and the condor. And so there's this collaboration that's happening, and this a synchrony and a solidarity that's beginning to emerge as a result of indigenous voices standing up to oppression and suppression and marginalization, that has been ongoing for centuries, and so it's beautiful to be a part of this dream and to continue the struggle. So there's an affirmation of indigeneity and the preservation of culture and language for future generations. And so I'm really honored to be a part of that. And I currently see in the United States that this is just another iteration of the same kind of administration that has been attempting to suppress and oppress indigenous peoples for over 500 years. And you spoke about, the Caribbean. And so I'm deeply troubled that this administration is attempting to rescind, the acknowledgement of Indigenous Peoples Day, to go back to Columbus Day, who, this man who was a perpetrator of genocide and slavery in the Caribbean nations. And yet they are extolling this figure, right? And of course, we also have the change of the narrative into one where they want to give medals of honor to the soldiers who massacred women and children and elders who were defenseless at Wounded Knee. And so again, it's just the same iteration of administrations that are unable to see and respect cultural awareness and sensitivity. And I see this as necessary for us also in this time to come together in solidarity, but always through prayer and through peaceful means. I was involved with Standing Rock, and in the height of winter, with the heavy snows and the bitter cold, I drove to provide 400 pounds of bison bone and meat and distribute it to the camps during that essential resistance, that through a peaceful and prayerful means to stop the pipeline from moving through sovereign sacred territory of the Standing Rock nations, and really see that it's essential for us as a species to wake up and to utilize prayer and ceremony as the foundation through which we can derive nourishment and connection and insight and inspiration. And there's a paucity of that in our world now, where there's such a deep fundamental forgetting of our humanity and how to love and care and respect for one another, as well as the earth, as well as all of our relations. And again, the prophecies have foretold of this time of the quickening and also the challenges that we face. And I do not regard enlightenment as a solitary endeavor. It's a collective one. And so it's important for us to work together and to bolster one another, to seek our allies, those who stand with us, and also to understand that if we really embody the words mitakwe oyasin, that means we are all related. And so we have family members who have forgotten how to love the earth and cherish and respect and be responsible stewards for her and for all life on this planet. And so it's necessary that we communicate even with those who have forgotten, and to stand in opposition to, through resistance and through sovereignty, the honoring of our sovereignty as individuals, as nations, as communities. And, it is in fact refreshing to see the amount of momentum that's starting to stand up against this tyranny and this slide backwards, and it's only a matter of time. I mean, this too has been prophesized that the pendulum would swing back. It's only taken 250 years, for this return to more authoritarian kind of governance. But the reality is that, the people, just as indigenous nations have been able to survive and flourish now, that I do believe, that we will be able to prevail in this opportunity that we have as well. Again, with the foundation of, sacred practice. And so it's really incumbent upon each and every one of us to, for me, dive even deeper into our sacred practices, to allow that to be the nourishment and the foundation, which is why people have gone without food and water and sleep, in this Hamblecha recently, to be able to understand the potency and the power that prayer and silence and listening to the ancestors can provide. And so, again, I'm really honored to be on this call and to understand the necessity for us to, for the sake of future generations, 7 generations and beyond, of all of our relations, to understand our collective original instructions as a species, which is to be responsible, loving stewards of this earth, and to have the foresight of how to conduct ourselves, both in thought and word and action, with vigilance and with humility, to come together, so that future generations whom we will never see in our lifetimes will still have a livable planet and be able to flourish. And so I'm really deeply grateful to be on this call and to understand that this platform is also extraordinarily valuable, for us to come together and to really begin to weave that spider web, the grandmother spider. This I see as a way of bringing that web even more tighter and closer together. And then we can champion one another in this time of great opportunity and urgency, because essentially we are running out of time. This is an unsustainable trajectory. And so, I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, to in the Caribbean, and also, with my own ancestry, also a mutt, and from Scandinavia and the British Isles and Europe, but also Oklahoma, Cherokee, Tsalagi on my father's side. And so, definitely touched by the Trail of Tears, but also, I'm reminded, every year, on Thanksgiving, and of course that's, in quotations there, but I would travel to Alcatraz Island, where indigenous peoples would assemble, and it was known as the Unthanksgiving for many, many years. But eventually, an elder said it's time for us to honor it as Thanksgiving and celebration that we have been able to survive and flourish even in the midst of profound genocide and adversity. And so, similarly, with the trails of joy, the tears of joy for our for the survival and the resistance to oppression and suppression and marginalization and disenfranchisement, and to understand that through, as my mother would share in her song, that through sacred practice, we will prevail. And, the cultivation of our humanity, and to understand what that code is, and that's essentially, my objective for traveling to Guatemala to collaborate with other indigenous medicine people, is to help men remember, how to, remember the code of conduct of how to be exemplary, how to be peaceful, awakened warriors in this world, which is contrary to militancy and aggression, but is actually the cultivation of a deep and abiding peace, first within oneself, and then, to find elaborate ceremonial rituals and protocols which have existed for millennia on how to reconcile differences in a healthy, mature manner. And so that is part of my intent to travel to Guatemala by that sacred lake to, help men heal their own wounds from the forgetting, and from a Western colonized educational paradigm, which essentially teaches aggression and violence and colonization, and so helping individuals to decolonize and re-indigenize, because ultimately we are all indigenous. We all have indigenous ancestors from the earth. For those even in Central Europe and Scandinavia, like the Sami people, for example, and above the Arctic Circle in Norway, but even in Central Europe, the indigenous nations who were also exterminated thousands of years ago through the acquisition of land through the Crusades, under the guise of searching for the chalice. So all of us carry indigenous ancestry from wherever we reside on this earth, and yet so it's about a re-indigenization and a remembrance of our humanity, and how we can come together for future generations. So that's all that is on my heart right now, and I'm really deeply honored to be able to share with all of you tonight.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. There was so much in your presentation, and I guess some of the words that really stuck was the fulfillment of prophecy. We all know that we're in the time of prophecy. We knew this time was coming, and we've had Eagle Condor gatherings for many, many, many years now, bringing the North and the South and the in the middle, all together, with the middle kind of being the conduit. And it was just recently, brought to my attention that the Quetzal is the in between, and that Mexico plays such a very important part in our history and our, I guess, coming back together. So that includes all that, that's involved in that. And so the other important thing too is the indigenous voices standing up, because our hearts, that indigenous heart, indigenous voice of all nations, and I'm not saying just our indigenous nations from North and South America, but that indigenous voice from all nations around the world, so powerful and coming back. And so that's been part of Grandmother's Circle of the Earth work. We've traveled, across the world, inspiring other, I guess, grandmothers to create working circles. And these working circles are about what is it that you need in your communities, and just start a grassroots movement in order to bring those changes that are so necessary. And we really don't realize sometimes how important that is. And so just hearing, the messages that you both have presented tonight just awakened so much. And again, that collective endeavor, to make change. I mean, both of you spoke about the changes that we need to make as human beings, and it starts with each and every one of us, and then collectively that change spreads out across the universe, because that universal light flows through us. So thank you so much for sharing the beautiful messages that you've shared tonight. And again, my heart just feels so wonderful, feels so much lighter, and it feels like
You
um,
guys,
even though there's chaos, there's so much beauty, also, that we just have to rise above that chaos and focus on that beauty that we have the responsibility to create. So again, Yawagoa from way up here and at Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. And I know Susan in Illinois, and Jody, wherever Jody is traveling to. I think she's in the western part of Canada, bringing great messages. And Jen, thank you again for being that beautiful spirit who, with your beautiful voice and the work that you do, just brings so much love into this world as well. So would you like, Jen, to maybe close up and to introduce next week's guest, or to talk about next week's guest?
Sure will. Thank you so much, Gail. Niawen Chimigwech, Grandmother Susan, who was here in spirit, and there is a message from her that I'll share. She sent a message earlier. And to Grandmother Gail, grandmothers, grandfathers, elders, and teachers who shared their voices with us tonight. What was spoken here lives beyond this moment. These teachings ripple forward. They awaken something ancient in us, something that remembers who we are and why we are here. The circle remains open. The fire is still burning. We carry it now with humility, courage, and with love. So I invite you, tend to the fire in your own heart. Listen for the voice of your elders. Walk with the ancestors. Speak truth. Be gentle and return here when the time calls again. You can revisit these teachings and follow the full 52-week journey on the Grandmother's Voice YouTube channel. And until next time, may your path be lit with wisdom of the grandmothers and grandfathers, and may you never forget you are part of this story too. Join us next Monday when we will welcome Connie Baxter Marlowe and her husband Andrew to speak. Until then, Bamapi. See you later, everyone.
May I
Thank you for
conclude
tuning
with
in.
the thank you song? Would
Oh,
that be
First,
possible?
that would
please,
be amazing.
please do. Yes.
Yes, so it's always good, since we commenced in song, we conclude in song as well, full circle. So, gratitude is the wings of prayer, and so therefore I offer this song of gratitude for each and every one of you and all of our listeners. This is actually the favorite song of my beloved wife, who is in the spirit world now. And I know that my Lakota mother also appreciated this song. Wakan tonka tonka shela, wakan tonka tonka shela, pela maya yelo hey, shanum pa wakan chamaya kuelo. Hey, pila maya yelo hey, wichozale wa maya guelo, pila maya ye, pila maya yelo hey. Chanumpa wakan chamaya kuelo hey pila maya yelo hey we chose ane wa maya kuelo pila maya ye pila maya yelo hey wakan tanka shela wakan tanka shela pela maya yelo hey chanumpa wakan chamaya kuelo hey pela maya yelo hey we chose ane wa maya kuelo pila maya hey pila maya yelo hey chanumpa wakan chamaya kuelo hey pila maya yelo hey we chose ane wa maya kuelo pila maya ye pila maya yelo hey oh mitakuye oyasi.
Miigwech Bama P. Until next time.